As we await the results for the Iowa caucuses, it has not been a good week overall for the first nominating state in the Democratic primary. On top of the app meltdown and confusion last night and early this morning, there was also an uproar over a highly anticipated Iowa poll that was scrapped at the very last minute. Axios media reporter Sara Fischer writes about this in her new weekly newsletter, which is out today. And she's joining us from Washington. All right, so Sara, let's first begin with last night. What are you hearing went wrong with this application?
Yes, what sources are telling Axios is that the app itself might not be super flawed, but all of the things around it that make an app useful were flawed. So the data transfer between the app and to the precinct people who were measuring the votes did not go well. People that needed to be counting the votes, that needed to download the app, only had a certain window of time in which they could actually download it. And some of them missed the window. There wasn't good communication around when you needed to actually download the app. There was concerns that voters were confused about how it worked. So there was just a lot of problems involved with this app. And at this point, no one is really rushing to take responsibility for it. The Iowa Democratic Party has put out some statements, but we don't have anyone that said, look, we are going to own up to this, and that's probably the biggest problem surrounding this app failure.
You write that the mishaps that happened last night could foreshadow, quote, the types of technological risks the American electorate can expect during 2020. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's been this sort of dystopian notion that we are going to introduce technology into our lives and it's going to make everything better and fix everything. And I think what we saw yesterday was that technology is not going to fix everything. Sometimes the analog world, just written ballots, is more reliable, quite frankly, than technology. And so what I foresee happening is other states that were preparing to do similar things with apps, Nevada was also planning to do a similar thing with apps during its primary, might now sort of rush to say, stop rushing to say that this is the move that we're going to do. They might actually fall back on the way we did things traditionally because the technology at this point, it just might pose too many risks for something as important as an election.
So how is misinformation playing a role in the caucuses?
Anytime something goes wrong, not just in politics, but particularly in politics, people are upset, they're frustrated, emotional, confused. They're going to go on social media. They're going to complain about it. You're going to start to see conspiracy theories. Oh, you know, the Democrats plan to do this. Oh, Republicans did that. And you saw a little bit of that happening last night when voters couldn't understand what was happening. They took to social media to kind of ask what was going on. The other aspect of this, too, is that you see attempts by, I don't want to say just the right, but different people, especially on the right, who are trying to undermine the voting system, spreading misinformation about how it works. The Iowa Democratic Party had to come out and say a statement on Monday saying, look, some of the rumors that you've been hearing just aren't true. And that misinformation really matters because what you don't want is false information to dissuade people from going out and either caucusing or voting.
Right, indeed. All right, let me ask you about this poll. Over the weekend, as you know, the Des Moines Register and CNN scrapped this Iowa poll over what they say was a concern about an interview mistake. As far as I understand it, it was one interview. So what kind of impact could problems like this have on the presidential race? And just explain, you know, I think some people may be seeing this or they're reading about this and they're trying to understand how one interview, if that's what it ultimately was, can cause the entire poll to be scrapped.
Well, if there's reported that one interview is bad, one can make an assumption that maybe several interviews went bad, even only if one was reported. What ended up happening here, Vlad, was also probably a technological failure. Again, going back to our point off the top, that technology is not going to solve all of our problems. Apparently, what had happened, sources tell Axios' Mike Allen, that the person reading the poll was reading off of a computer screen. They enlarged their font so much that the names of some of the people on the ballot were actually cut off at the bottom of the screen, and so they just didn't read them to the person on the other end of the line. It forced CNN and the Des Moines Register to pull this poll. And let me tell you, this is an important poll. This is the last measurement that voters are relying on to understand how they're going to cast their ballot. The fact that it never came out was a huge embarrassment and was a huge failure on behalf of both of those organizations, unfortunately.
Sara Fischer, so great to have you to help us understand and to clarify the things that are happening and swirling all around us. Thank you very much, as always.
Thank you.